Namaskar. This video is called three causes of crime. Why in the society, in the 21st century, when we are enlightened human beings, why we still have crimes? And a lot of crimes. Why do we have that? And it doesn't matter what type of oppression you create on society, what type of strictness and discipline you impose on the society. It doesn't matter how big a police force in your country is, still there will be crimes. Unless these three reasons for crime are uprooted, we cannot have crime-free society. And that has to be understood. And that was understood in the spiritual philosophy. But somehow in the society, we just close our eyes. And these are very simple truths. So the first reason is lack of physical resources and intellectual resources, intellectual wealth, poverty and lack of education. These are the reasons for crime. When person becomes desperate, he is constantly hungry, constantly thirsty, constantly in misery, in poverty, in dirt, then that desperation drives person to commit a crime. And then the law doesn't take into account whether this person was hungry and was desperate or not. The law will judge that person, will put in the prison. But we actually have to, it is our society, we have created the society this way. What about us? We also should go to the prison for that person, because we have created those conditions. We have created those conditions that in our family, in our human family, somebody becomes that desperate and then commits the crime. Another reason for crime is over-accumulation of wealth. When you become too wealthy, you also acquire strange tendencies in the mind. If you are over-wealthy and over-materialistic, of course, if you are wealthy and you have some ideals in life, you have great goals in life, you have great passions, like you have a cause to live, then wealth doesn't make you a bad person. And then wealth does not necessarily make every person bad, but it does create, it does strengthen this tendency. You may search for more pleasures, and you may feel that you are a chosen one, and you are allowed something which other people not allowed. So that over-accumulation of wealth also creates tendency of crime in society. And then there is this growing gap, which makes people angry. Some people are too wealthy and some people are too poor. Unless and until we put in our constitutions the article that every person is guaranteed 5 basic necessities according to the needs of time. We are living in 21st century, and the five basic necessities today are not those of 17th century. So everyone needs a house, everyone needs education, everyone needs medical care, everyone needs food and clothes. So these 5 basic has to be guaranteed to every human being. Unless that is done, crime is going to continue to happen, and it is going to hurt our society. And then there has to be the way to bridge this gap. The gap should not go. That's the not sign of progress of society. It is a sign of degeneration of society. If you look at the numbers, it's like, oh my God, what's going on? You will see the rich become ultra rich, too much insane, and then poor becomes same, or they become even poorer. So the gap is growing and growing. But the sign of progress of society is the opposite, that the gap is diminishing. The poor people becomes richer, and the affluent people, they become more aware, and they have more love and more responsibility. So they limit their overwhelming wealth and utilize it to develop the society, to develop the education, and so on and so on. Some people do. Some people become rich and they spend their money for the worthy causes, but not everyone. And so there has to be a certain legislation for that, like a progressive tax system. The way to bridge this gap. Human potential is so much underutilized. With the lack of resources, with the lack of education, people spend their lives in misery, with never gaining the spark of humanity, the spark of intellectuality. Work, go work, come back, take some beer and watch TV. That's the life. Life is going on like that. So in that life there is no scope to awaken the subtlest human potentialities. And that's our fault. And then the third reason for crime is stagnation. When we are stagnating, when there is no movement. In life, actually, you cannot stay in one place. Either you develop or you degenerate. You cannot just stay. You can stay, but you have to make an effort to stay. To be at the same status, you have to make an effort. You still have to try. It's like you are walking on the running, this, what you call it? I'm forgetting the English word. When you run in the gym and the track is just slipping below you, and you have to make the steps. So that's to stay in one place. You have to do that. And then to go somewhere, you have to run really, really fast. And this idea of dynamism is totally lacking in our society. In the Western societies is more, but still not entire societies. Only some percentage of the society has that idea that I must develop, that's the value of life. And that idea, so when there is stagnation, the empty mind is the workshop of the devil. When the mind is empty, it comes with all the strange ideas and all those tendencies which are there in us, the animalistic tendencies, merging with the human thirst for infinity, they assert themselves as a tendency for crime. So the mind has to be constantly engaged, even if you are 80 years old. Like you see some people, when they become old, they become also toxic, because nothing to do. And that's natural, nothing to do, naturally turns them into the toxic people. And some people don't. Like I have one lady, 80 years old, and white, and she's like this, very thin. And I will say like, you are getting old. No, don't say like this. I don't like this. I have so many things to do. I have such a big visions. And she's so positive. So that that mechanism that keeps people inspired and keeping them pushing ahead needs to be implanted in the early childhood through our educational system. The children has to be explained the idea of greatness. In the Sanskrit, you can say the idea of Brahma. Brahma means absolute consciousness. That is the final frontier, that is the final limit. There is no limit actually. Limitlessness is your destination. So that infinite development, not in the physical sphere, but in the intellectual sphere and in the spiritual sphere, that idea has to be implanted. And the entire life the person is striving towards that. When these three things are done, the 5 basic necessities are guaranteed to everyone. Secondly, there is some limit, some way to limit the over-accumulation of wealth. And then some way to ensure that the wealth does not stagnate also. It is working for the benefit of humanity. It's like in the body, no? If some muscle will take all the blood here, all the blood will stay here, but everywhere else there is no blood, then I think the muscle will suffer also. It will be swollen, no? And the entire body is going to suffer. And the blood is going to become very stale and stagnant. And it will spoil also. So the finances, there was one good experimentation. I don't remember what country it was. It was like the money devaluing. It's, for example, you get the salary $100. And then after 1 week it will become $95. Like this. Your amount of the money decreases. So it forced people to invest the money all the time, searching how to spend the money, how to invest the money. And immediately that economy started to grow because there is no, there is a natural tendency to accumulate, to amass things, to hoard things. But once the money are losing the value, you're like, I must put it somewhere, I must spend it somehow. So the economy started to run. So this tendency of hoarding and speculations somehow have to be curtailed. Some people are putting money to the good use. They're building the rockets, they're building the cars, they're building the computers, they're building so many things. But some people are just speculating the money. They're just hoarding them somehow in the banks. So this society has to develop instruments to curtail that kind of over-accumulation of wealth. And the wealth should be redistributed to society. I could make this point much more clearer, but this is not the topic. So the wealth has to be redistributed, the money has to flow, and there has to be abundance of money in society. So everyone is wealthy and everyone is searching for something. I want to do something with my money. Yeah. Guarantee the 5 basic necessities. Secondly, curtail the infinite accumulation of wealth. And third, implant the idea of progress through our educational system, since childhood, in the school and in the university also. The main objective of university is not to give knowledge. The main objective of university is to awaken that thirst for limitlessness. In India they say, Savidya cha vimuktaya. Savidya cha vimuktaya. The education is what leads to liberation. Otherwise it's not education. You accumulated knowledge, but okay, you have liberated yourself in the economic sphere, maybe, but not completely. But what about intellectual sphere? Have you overcome all your dogmas and all your wrong ideas? And have you liberated yourself spiritually as a result of education? And you have not, because the education has not given that idea of greatness into your mind. It has not created that. And it is not, the education is not thinking that it has to create that kind of idea in a human being. But without that, we have stagnant society with the crime. And if you observe the real examples of the countries who has done that, like for example Scandinavia, the crime rate is much less because people, they have their basic necessities, and there are no poor people. Actually, there are no poor people. Why they have to steal? Nobody has to steal. And in general, the feeling when I was there, the feeling was that in general people are very moral. They're very, very moral. It's, I don't know what is the chicken or the egg, what comes first. Out of morality comes wealth, prosperity. Out of prosperity comes morality, and it's going on. But we can see that the society is quite well. It's not like, not too much crime is going on. Still I would say that the stagnation thing they didn't figure out. They couldn't figure it out. So still there is some stagnation. And I think this is the way to the crime-free society. And there is no need for police. There is no need for jails. There is no need for brutality. There is no need for oppression. We can just live like a family. We are human beings. I mean, we are good by nature. We only become bad in unnatural circumstances. And our wrong ideas, how our society should run, has created that unnatural situation of disparity and the lack of goal in society. That's why we enjoy this situation. We have to suffer. Enjoy and suffer. Yeah. Let's discuss in the comments what you think about this topic. Namaskar.